Okay, friends, we're back reading through the Bible in a year, 2023. This is week 2, day 1. It's Monday. We're following this schedule. There's a link in the description for this video that will take you to a blog post that I did that has the reading plan. It has some other resources you may want to turn to as you're doing this reading. I am doing both audio and reading through in my print Bible. First, I'm listening to audio, and I've been listening ahead actually a bit just because I want to get a little bit of a bigger picture. So I've been listening to it, and then usually the day of the reading, usually after lunch, I'll sit down with the print Bible and I'll go through it and I'll make some notes and things and highlight some things that I may want to talk about in these videos or not. I've gotten some feedback from you, although my thought was to keep these videos to a shorter time frame. I've gotten some comments that say you don't need to do that so much. I'd rather have some more. So we'll just see what happens. I'm not going to try to fill space, but if there's things that I think are well worth talking about, all of it's worth talking about, but things that particularly are on my mind to sort of share, I will do that. Certainly, the invitation is there for you to share as well, too. This isn't about what Dan saw in the Bible so much as what are we seeing in the Bible as we read through it together. But because I will never on any day cover all in any sort of substantial way, all of what we're doing, it's really important for you to read the scriptures yourself. And you may want to talk about things that aren't on my mind, and that's fine. Leave a comment on the side. If you're here when I'm live, I can interact with it. If you're watching this later, as many do, you can still leave a comment and I will write back to you, respond to the comment, or you can get in touch with me personally as well. But having it in the chat somehow is nice because others are probably asking the same questions you are. Or if they're not, maybe they should be. So it'll help us to think more deeply about it. We are in Genesis chapters 29 through 31. Here today, but I'm going to kind of wind back just a little bit. I just did a short pre-recorded 10-minute, I think max, thing on Saturday, and there's a lot going on here with Jacob and Esau, with their parents, Isaac and Rebekah, and I don't know how you could read this and not think, wow, this is really messy. This family seems like they belong either in a dramatic TV show, Netflix special, or on daytime TV talk show. This is some wild stuff, right? Wild ride. And I'm just saying, if I was going to make up a story that wasn't real about my family line, it wouldn't be this story. Because this story is quite an adventure, isn't it, that we are on here in this journey. So Jacob and Esau are twins. Jacob comes out, grab his brother's heel. That's kind of what the name actually Jacob refers to. And so he, with the help of his mother and his brother Esau's kind of witlessness at the beginning, kind of comes into play here, where Jacob gets the blessing. But I'll tell you what, for me as a reader, it's hard not to like Esau. I mean, yeah, he might not be the smartest guy, but I don't know. He seems sincere enough. But here's the deal. Throughout this story, it's not about God sort of lining up two characters necessarily and picking the one that makes the most sense, or the one that's the best, or the one that's whatever. In some cases, we saw, like with Noah, there was something about his character that was significant for God to preserve him. But in the case of Abraham, he seems to kind of call him out of the blue, but he does respond in faith, and that's something significant. But it gets a little bit more complicated as time goes on, particularly with Jacob and Esau. Jacob has a lot of issues that God's got to work with him through. So, hey, good news. If you've got issues, which you do, and I do, God's going to work with us. He worked with Jacob, and he certainly had some things to sort of wrestle with. But here's an interesting thing in chapter 27. I know I'm backing up a little bit. I'm not going to go in detail here. But in 27:41, I just want to mention this because we have to check it as we move forward. I think it'll be tomorrow's reading that this will come back around again with Esau. But it says this, 27:41, Esau held a grudge against Jacob because of the blessing his father had given him. And he said to himself, the days of mourning for my father are near. Then I will kill my brother Jacob. Okay. So this, I think, kind of harkens back to Cain and Abel, one being accepted and the other one not. And again, the scripture doesn't tell us exactly why. It could be because of the nature of the offering. It could just be because God's choice, the way that this seems to sort of work out about the people that he's going to primarily work through. But like Cain and Abel, Esau has this desire to kill his brother. So what's going to happen with that? Is he going to follow the same path as with Cain and Abel? Or is Esau going to do something different? He is, even though he's not in the primary thrust of the family that God's going to primarily work through. We've seen here with Ishmael, with Hagar, right, that even those who aren't in the primary track of the family line that God's going to use to bring about his purpose, that God's eye is still on the others, the outcasts as well. So this is going to be an interesting thing for us to track through the biblical story, right? That although God has, so what does it mean for God to choose people? To choose people for something doesn't necessarily mean that the people that aren't chosen are unseen or don't matter at all. It's just that we kind of have this primary thrust, this work that God is doing, but then there's other things happening on the periphery as well. And God sees those people and often cares for them as well. So that's just really interesting stuff. So in chapter 28, very, very quickly, Isaac and Rebekah don't want Jacob to choose a son, a wife rather, from the people that they're living among, who's not their people. So they're going to send him away, and that's going to be the whole story with Jacob and his wives that we're getting right into in the reading that we're looking at right today. But I just want us to again see at the end of towards the end of chapter 28 with this vision that Jacob sees of the stairway to heaven. Right? I'm not gonna sing the song. But God reaffirms the covenant promise to Abraham, to Isaac, to Jacob, and that's going to be the referent throughout this biblical Old Testament story, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So this helps us understand the big picture. But look what he says. Chapter 28, verse 13. I will give you and your descendants the land on which you are lying. He's sleeping right now. Your descendants will be like the dust of the earth, and you will spread out to the west and to the east, to the north and to the south. All peoples on earth will be blessed through you and your offspring. Does that sound familiar? It should. That's God's promise to Abraham when he calls him, Genesis chapter 12. Man, we're already in 29 from chapter 12. We're moving, right? We're moving along, but we need to not forget the things that we're moving past because they all carry forward. And this is cool. And I think it speaks to what I was just talking about a couple minutes ago, that there's a special blessing, right? A unique work that God is doing, but in order to bless those beyond the initial scope of those who God is kind of specially working with, right? That's going to become important throughout the story. The idea of later on, like the nation of Israel, their intention being, as they live, to be a light to the nations. So we see this covenant promise comes through again and again and again, and it's going to really apply to our lives in some significant ways. So let's not jump ahead on application. I know we want application. What does this mean for my life? That kind of thing. And it's very important. But let's not rush that. Let's let the story build and then draw applications out when they really feel like they're maybe right for us. So all people on earth will be blessed through you and your offspring, right, your family. I am with you and will watch over you wherever you go, and I will bring you back to this land. I will not leave you until what I have done, what I have promised you. And I love this. So I just can't skip this. Chapter 28. And we're still in Saturday's reading. I'm sorry. Maybe you caught up yesterday, and this is more fresh to you. When Jacob awoke from his sleep, he thought, "Surely the Lord is in this place, and I was not aware of it." Ooh, I love that. I love that. I'm gonna apply that right now. Maybe verse 17 too. He was afraid and said, "How awesome is this place? This is none other than the house of God. This is the gate of heaven." So this is a spot that Jacob chose to just lay down in and put his head on a rock to sleep. But this spot, this any old spot, becomes a significant spot because Jacob realizes, surely the Lord was in this place and I was not aware of it. And I don't know, maybe I'm spiritualizing too much, but I think this is somewhat a matter of perspective, that when we realize that we don't have to only go to certain places to find God, but that every spot that we're in, if we'll recognize, right, God, the God of the universe who created every one of these spots, if we seek him and find him there, that any one of these spots can become of deep significance, to be places where we meet with God. And it's called Bethel. Hey, Bethel's a word, Bethel music. The congregation that I'm a part of is Fairview Bethel. Bethel works its way into a lot of the sort of church names. It means house of God. It's a place where we kind of seek God, which is cool. It's also problematic if you think it's only in that place, but it's cool because we meet together with the purpose of seeking God. So Bethel, house of God, right? El is a word for God. Bethlehem, we'll see later, right? The house of bread. Bethel is the house of God. So that's what that word means. And so he, and following there in verse 18, he takes a stone that he was sleeping on, and now he sets it up as a monument, as a memorial, if you will. How awesome is this place? He said, this is none other than the house of God. This is the gate of heaven, right? Where the blessings of God's realm kind of flow out here to us. So, all right, cool stuff. So 13 minutes later, we get to our actual passage for the day. So Jacob arrives at, and remember, Laban is his mother Rebecca's brother. So this is family stuff. So that makes, you don't want to think about the relationships. It's just not, you're not going to enjoy it. So just let it be. So he, in chapter 29, he first meets Rachel. This is cool. Rachel's a shepherd, we're told here. She's the shepherd is the word that later becomes used for pastor. And in the New Testament, it kind of throughout the Old Testament takes on that kind of idea, which is interesting. But Rachel is not and really nobody in the ancient world was like. There's no like this ideal of husband out working, wife's just at home doing stuff. That's not realistic to the ancient world. Everybody did everything because they were trying to survive at that time and place. So Rachel is with the sheep. She is a shepherd, the scripture tells us. And Jacob quickly falls in love. And this story really is I mean, you read it, right? What are your thoughts, you guys? Share what you're wondering, what you're thinking, what stands out to you in this particular reading that we're sort of doing today. So Jacob meets his match with Laban as far as craftiness, right? And sort of trying to kind of work to get things the way you want them. Laban really gives Jacob a run for his money because he falls in love. Right, we're in chapter 29. He falls in love with Rachel, but he doesn't have a dowry. That was kind of the ancient practice. Remember, I think when Abraham sent out for a wife for Isaac, he had some funds there to kind of secure the thing. That's kind of how it worked in the ancient world and in some places today. But Jacob doesn't have a pot of gold here. He's got to work for his wife. So immediately, much like I said, even more so, like I said, I kind of have a soft spot for Esau. It's kind of easy to have a soft spot for Leah, right? There's two sisters, we're told. So I'm in chapter 29, verse 17. Leah had weak eyes, the translation says. That word, a lot of studies been done into that word. What does it mean? What is that? What's with Leah? It's hard to say for sure, but Jacob's eye is turned towards Rachel. She, we're told in verse 17, had a lovely figure and was beautiful. Like Jacob took notice, and he says, "I'll work for you for 7 years in return for your younger daughter Rachel." Now look what Laban does in verse 19. He says, "It is better that I give her to you than to some other man. Stay here with me." So he doesn't. Jacob says something very specific that he wants. Laban infers that he's saying yes, but he's gonna be tricky, right? So Jacob served for 7 years to get Rachel, and they seem like only a few days because of his love for her. So look at this. All right, we're moving from G or PG to the different ratings here in the Bible with this verse 21. Jacob said to Laban, "Give me my wife. My time is completed, and I want to make love to her." He said, 7 years is a long time. All right, Laban, I'm ready for her. Of course, they have this feast, but Laban does this kind of bait and switch, and we wonder how could that have happened. This cultural things about maybe veil, maybe Jacob had too much to drink. It's right, hard to say for sure. But we're told this kind of shocking thing in the narrative in verse 25 of chapter 29. When morning came, there was Leah. Oh no, that's not what Jacob had in mind. So it's interesting here, the situation with Jacob having two wives, and we kind of wonder about this polygamy thing and how it works with it. I don't know. We're gonna have to just do some longer discussion on that subject sometime. And I keep putting it off, but we'll get to it. Okay, maybe wait for David. Talk about David. We'll talk about it maybe in there. So Laban says, "Hey, it's not. I didn't tell you, but it's not our custom to marry off the younger with the others." So, here's the deal. There's this thing, this family dynamic, this thing about Jacob makes no qualms about the fact that he loves Rachel and Leah's just kind of there. And so there's this competitive thing, and we see how important it is to have children. That, of course, is part of the blessing that is going on here in the story, the covenant, right, of the people multiplying, but also in the ancient world, that's your security. That we saw Rachel, Laban's daughter, is watching the sheep. Like, your kids are your workforce. If you're wealthy enough, you can have other servants as well, which is ideal. But your kids are the ones, and they carry on your family line, your family name, and that was very, very important in the ancient world. So to not be able to have children was a real big problem. It was socially shameful. It could cause rifts in relationships. We saw all the challenges that were associated with it with Abraham and Sarah in that story. But look at this. I mean, this sounds kind of sad, doesn't it? So 29, verse 31. When the Lord saw that Leah was not loved, he enabled her to conceive, but Rachel remained childless. More questions we could ask here, right, as well too. So I'll not. But if there's things you really want to dig into, just let me know, and we can circle back around and talk some more about it. But so I don't know. What do you think? I feel for Leah. I'm like, man, this is. So look what she says. So in 29, like 32, Leah became pregnant, gave birth to a son. She named him Reuben, for she said, "It is because the Lord has seen my misery." Look what she says. Surely my husband will love me now. Isn't that sad? That she's just, just craving his affection for her and just thinking, I'm sure he wants a son. When I give him a son, then he'll be, surely he'll love me. And look at this. Verse 33, she conceived again when she gave birth to a son. She said, because the Lord heard that I am not loved, he gave me this one too. Verse 34, again she conceived. And when she gave birth to a son, she said, now at last my husband will become attached to me because I have borne him 3 sons. Now at last, right? So I'm not a fan of Jacob yet. Jacob to me seems like, I don't know. What do you think about Jacob? Share some thoughts with me now or later on when you're watching this. In a sense, maybe it's not his fault. He only wanted to marry Rachel. That's all he expressed his desire. And Laban kind of did this bait and switch with him. So now he's got 2 wives to deal with. That's probably the wrong way to think about it, maybe. But it's interesting. And Leah is kind of lonely here in this situation. So let me end with this because I'm getting long again now too. So share your thoughts though too about length. Just let me know. Send me a message or post a comment there sometime because I can go all kinds of ways on how long I talk here. But let me end with this because this is good, I think. So verse 35, chapter 29. She conceived again. This is Leah. And when she gave birth to a son, she said, this time I will praise the Lord. So she named him Judah, and then she stopped having children. So I don't know, like could easily, maybe I am making too much of this, but it seems like maybe Leah kind of flipped a little bit of a switch in her mind and stopped kind of chasing Jacob's lack of affection or desire for her and turn her attention more towards God. I don't know. See what you think about that. Reflect on that a little bit. So here's the big thing in the biblical story as a whole, and then I'll be done for today. And tomorrow we're going to have Jacob and Esau is going to reunite. What's going to happen, right? Exciting stuff. But here's why this is important. If you don't understand this, you don't understand the foundation of the Old Testament story. We've looked several times over these weeks at God's promises, right? That God's going to bless this family line to multiply and fill, that they're going to be a blessing. They're going to have this land that they're going to eventually fill, big part of the narrative. But in these chapters that we're reading today, these 12 sons of Jacob are the 12 tribes of Israel. We'll see Jacob's name is going to be changed or given an additional name of Israel. So we think about it as a land, as a country. It's primarily in the Old Testament sense, in the biblical sense, a people. So Jacob is Israel. The 12 sons of Jacob, their family lines become the 12 tribes of Israel, which, carry forward in the story. So again, I mentioned a couple last week once about understanding of origins. So there's like side things that they're kind of thinking about understanding different aspects of where different people groups came from. But this is where their people group came from. The primary focus, right, of this one family line now goes from Abraham to Isaac to Jacob to 12 sons that will become 12 big families, right? 12 clans, 12 tribes that will become the whole people of the Old Testament story of Israel. So that's where we're at, and that's maybe just informational. But if you don't understand that, you don't understand the story. So this family line is the one through whom God has promised all these blessings. Where are we going? Stay tuned tomorrow. Share your thoughts, share your questions. What are you thinking? You liking this? This is crazy. Remember, what happens isn't necessarily what God said they should do. Rather, God is working through a people of sometimes questionable character, but he is working through them nonetheless, not wiping the slate clean, like we saw in the with Noah, right? In the flood, God said, I'm not doing that anymore. Instead, I'm working through these people for good or for ill. These are my people, and I'm gonna stick with them tenaciously. I'm gonna get them back in line. I'm gonna work with them, but this is the direction we're going, and this is the direction of our story. So, okay, have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.